Payday. The number lands in your account on a Friday, and for about 4 hours you are rich. Genuinely. You check the balance, it's the biggest it'll be all month, and there's this tiny window where the whole thing feels like possibility. Then the money starts getting spoken for. Rent takes its cut, usually the largest and least negotiable roommate you'll ever have. The card from last month wants its turn, groceries, gas, the phone bill, 3 subscriptions you're pretty sure you're paying for, and 1 you'd bet money you're not, except you are. By Sunday night, the balance has quietly returned to its natural resting position, low. Here's the one thing I want you to watch tonight, because it's the only number that actually describes your situation, and almost nobody tracks it. Of all the money that just came in, how much of it turned into something you own before the month absorbed it? Not something you rented, not something you consumed, something that's still yours next year, quietly working while you sleep. For a lot of us, if we're being honest, the answer this month was none. It came in, did its lap, and left. That share, the slice of your incoming money that becomes an ownership claim before the month eats it, is the whole story tonight. Because right now you are being told loudly and constantly that the economy is doing great. Records are being set, headlines are glowing, and you're standing there holding a paycheck that vanished by Sunday, wondering why none of that good news ever seems to reach you. That gap between the good news out there and your life in here is what I want to explain. Not with a pep talk, not with a guy telling you the crash is coming next Tuesday, just the honest mechanics of why the headline can soar while that share of yours sits at 0. And then the useful part, exactly how you nudge that share up, a little at a time, until the good news finally has somewhere in your life to land. The record-high headline you keep hearing measures one specific thing, the price of a short list of very large companies. That's the whole job of that number. It is not, and has never been, a measurement of your share, of how much of your paycheck became a claim this month. It is just weather in a country you might not have moved to yet. And the reason the gap feels so strange is that one of these gets read out loud every single night, and the other is invisible. There's a banner for market hits all-time high. There is no banner that says, this month in about half the households in the country, the share of income that became an ownership claim was approximately nothing. That's not a headline. That's just an ordinary month, and ordinary doesn't trend. So you end up marinating in news about a number that was never about you, while the number that is about you, that share, sits quietly at 0 with nobody mentioning it. I didn't track it for years. The good news, and I mean that as more than a figure of speech, is that the gap is mechanical, not moral. It's not a verdict on whether you're smart or disciplined or trying hard enough. It's a plumbing problem. And plumbing problems get fixed by understanding the plumbing, which is exactly where we're headed next. Why that headline can keep climbing without so much as glancing at your share. First thing to understand is that the market went up is a sneakily top-heavy sentence. When you hear the big index set a record, you probably picture thousands of companies rising together, a whole economy lifting at once like bread in an oven. The reality is lumpier and a lot more lopsided. A tiny cluster of enormous companies now makes up a startling share of the entire index. As I'm talking, 7 companies are roughly 32% of the whole thing. 7 out of 500. Widen it to the 10 biggest and you're past 40% of the index sitting in 10 names. Sit with that for a second, because it quietly changes what the word market even means. When those 10 have a great day, the headline flashes and the anchor says the market is soaring, even if the other 490 spent the day shuffling around going nowhere in particular. A record high can be a story about a very short guest list having a very good party. So why do those giants keep drifting upward even when the mood on the ground feels rough? Part of it is something that never shows up on any screen. There's a steady, almost mechanical amount of money moving into these companies every single day that has nothing to do with whether anyone out here feels optimistic. 2 big sources. 1. Companies buy back their own shares. using their profits to purchase their own stock, which shrinks the number of slices the pie is cut into and nudges each remaining slice up. 2. Automatic buying, money going into retirement plans and index funds every payday, on autopilot, whether or not a single human is paying attention. Put those together and you get more than $1 trillion a year of buying that shows up rain or shine, indifferent to the headlines, indifferent to your grocery bill, indifferent to how anybody feels about anything. Now here's the part I really want to land, because it's the hinge of the whole episode. A price going up is not the same thing as you having a claim on that growth. The price is just a number. A claim is a thing you actually own, a share, a slice, something that pays you a piece of the future whether you're watching it or fast asleep or on a beach somewhere. All that automatic buying lifts the price. It does not, on its own, hand you a claim. Somebody has to make that part happen, deliberately. And right now, the people it happens for are a fairly exclusive group. So if more than $1 trillion a year is lifting all these companies, the fair next question is, lifting them for whom? Whose share actually goes up when the record gets set? Here's the number that reorganizes everything. The wealthiest 1% of households owns about half of all the stock in the country. Half. Not half of the new gains, half of the entire pile of it. Which means when the headline sets its record, most of that gain, by plain arithmetic, lands in accounts that were already large. The upside is real. It's just heavily pre-assigned before it ever gets created. It flows in the main to the people already holding the claims. This is where a lot of these videos yank the wheel hard toward resentment. Rich people bad, game rigged, torches and pitchforks. Don't forget to subscribe. But resentment is a terrible financial plan. You can't spend it. It doesn't compound. And I have never seen someone's share climb because they got angrier at the number. So let me pull the emotion out and leave the fact sitting there. The takeaway isn't that the game is unwinnable. The takeaway is narrower and far more useful. The upside goes to the people who hold a claim. That's the rule. It has always been the rule. It rewards holding a piece, and it is almost rudely indifferent to how much you understand or how closely you follow the news. Which means the only question that actually touches your life, the single one worth your energy, is not, how do I stop the 1%? It's much smaller and much more within reach. How do I get that share of mine, the part of my income that becomes a claim, up off of zero? Because nobody is going to walk over and hand you a claim. That $1 trillion won't spill any of itself your way by accident. But you can build one yourself, on purpose. And the way you do it is so boring that it almost feels like it can't be the answer, which, when it comes to money, is usually the strongest sign that it is. Let me tell you about the most convincing evidence I know that ordinary people can get that share off of zero. And it isn't a story about willpower or some hero waking up at 5 in the morning. It's a story about laziness. Yours, mine, everyone's. Beautiful, dependable, load-bearing human laziness. For years, retirement plans worked like this. You had to sign yourself up, fill out the form, pick a number, opt in. And when doing nothing meant staying out, a huge share of people did exactly nothing. Participation sat around 49%, barely half. Not because those people were foolish, but because "I'll get to it later" is the strongest force in personal finance, and it wins nearly every time it shows up. Then, plans flipped one small thing. Instead of making you opt in, they signed you up automatically and let you opt out if you really wanted to. Same humans, same procrastination, same "I'll deal with it eventually." Except now, dealing with it eventually meant staying an owner, building a claim out of pure inertia. Participation went from around 49% to more than 86% in roughly 3 years. Nothing changed about the people. What changed was the direction their laziness pointed. Someone aimed all that "I'll do nothing" energy at ownership, and the same exact humans got their share off of zero without lifting a finger. That's the secret, and I love it because it lets you off the hook completely. You do not have to transform into a disciplined, spreadsheet-loving, budget-tracking machine. Those people exist and they're lovely, but they are not the reason this works. This works because you can set up one automatic contribution on a single day when you happen to have the energy, and then let your own laziness stand guard over it for the next 30 years. An automatic contribution is just a small, boring amount of your own money quietly becoming a claim every payday, on its own, whether or not you remember it exists. You're not timing anything. You're not predicting anything. You set that share above zero once, and then you let it run. And a modest amount, given enough time, does something that honestly feels like sleight of hand. $200 a month put in steadily for 30 years at a 10% average annual return grows to roughly $452,000. $200 a month. The overwhelming majority of that final number is not money you put in. It's growth stacked on growth stacked on growth. The same compounding those giant companies have been enjoying the whole time, except now a slice of it finally has your name on it. That's the bridge, from a share of zero to a share that's actually something. Small, automatic, boring, relentless. Now let me show you 2 ways to make it carry more. Here's where most people quietly leak the one thing that could have changed the whole picture. And the sad part is they never feel it leave. You get a raise. Real congratulations, that's genuinely great. Within a month or 2, the raise is gone. Life expanded to fill it. Slightly nicer groceries, a subscription you meant to cancel, a general upgrade to your baseline. Your income went up. Your share, the part that becomes a claim, didn't move. The raise dissolved into your life. The fix is a single rule, and it's almost insultingly simple. When your income goes up, send part of the increase into your own claim before your life gets a vote on it. Not all of it, I'm not a monster. Take a chunk of that raise and enjoy it. You earned the thing. Go buy the nicer whatever. But peel off a slice of every increase and send it straight into your automatic contribution the same week the raise shows up, before it has any chance to melt into your daily spending and go invisible. You never miss money you never started spending. That's the entire trick. You can't feel the absence of something that never entered your life. And the difference this makes over the years is a little absurd. Remember our steady $200 a month turning into about $452,000 over 30 years? Take that same starting point, the same $200 a month, except each year you nudge the contribution up by about $600, which is just catching a piece of a normal raise. Same start, same market, same everything, except your share climbs a little each year instead of sitting flat. That version lands at roughly $1.3 million. Same beginning, almost triple the ending. And you didn't get there by getting rich or timing anything or making some brilliant call at the perfect moment. You got there by refusing to let your raises evaporate. You caught a piece of each one before your lifestyle could quietly swallow it. That's the whole move. The raise capture rule is the closest thing I've found to a cheat code that isn't cheating, because it runs entirely on money you didn't have last year. You're not squeezing your current life at all. You're just intercepting future increases before they disappear into the same fog that swallowed every raise before them. Now, one more thing gets in the way of that share, and it isn't money, it's attention. Most people's financial life is scattered. An old retirement account from a job you left 2 jobs ago, a savings account at a bank you can barely picture, an investing app you funded once during a hopeful weekend and never opened again, a checking account, a second card, and an account that exists because a sign-up bonus tricked you in 2021. None of these are a disaster on their own, but together they do something quietly corrosive. They fracture your attention into a dozen little pieces, so no single piece ever gets managed properly. You've got money in 6 places and a clear view of none of them. And when you can't see the whole picture, you don't act on any of it, because acting feels like it requires understanding all of it first, and understanding all of it is exhausting, so you just don't. The whole thing sits there, unwatched, quietly underperforming, and your share stays lower than it should because half of it is stashed in corners you've forgotten you own. Every stray account is a small open tab in your head. The tabs you burn tracking forgotten accounts are tabs you're not spending on the decisions that move your life. So the move here is to pull things together, not because tidiness is a moral virtue, but because attention is scarce and you want to point as much of it as you can at the handful of things that matter. Gather the scattered pieces where it makes sense. Roll the old retirement account into one place. Close the accounts that exist for no reason. Get down to a setup so simple you could describe the whole thing to a friend in one breath without checking anything. Because the setup that simple is one you'll actually look at. And the things you actually look at are the things that actually improve. You're not doing this to feel organized. You're doing it so your automatic contribution and your raise capture rule are running somewhere clear enough that you'll never accidentally break them by forgetting they exist. Fewer places, more attention on each. Make the machine small enough to hold in your head all at once, and suddenly keeping an eye on it stops feeling like a chore you avoid. All right. Let me put this in an order you can actually follow, because a plan you can't sequence is just a pleasant feeling that fades by tomorrow morning. First, before you turn a single dollar into a claim, deal with anything that's actively working against you. If you're carrying high-interest debt, the kind that grows faster than any market realistically returns, that's a small fire in the room, and you put the fire out first. Same idea with a basic cash cushion. If one surprise expense would knock your whole life sideways, a little pile of money you can reach quickly comes before ownership. Not a huge pile, just enough that you're not one flat tire away from a crisis. Stability first. You can't build anything durable on a foundation that's already underwater. Second, if you have a job that offers to match your retirement contributions and you're stable enough to reach for it, that match is the closest thing to free ownership that exists on the planet. Someone offering to add to your claim simply because you added to it. If it's on the table and you can get to it before anything fancier. Third, set up one automatic contribution. Modest, an amount that won't hurt, that you'll barely notice going missing. This is the day you have energy task, the one thing you do once so your laziness can protect it for decades. The exact amount matters far less than the automatic part. Start small. Small in running beats big in someday, every single time. Fourth, turn on the raise capture rule. Next time your income goes up, send a slice of the increase into that contribution before your life adjusts to the extra. You never adapt to money you never started spending, so this one is nearly painless. And over a career, it's the piece that quietly does the heaviest lifting. Fifth, spend one boring afternoon pulling your scattered accounts together. Track down the forgotten one. Combine what you reasonably can. Shrink the whole picture until you can take it in at a glance, so the machine you just built stays simple enough that you'll never lose the thread of it. That's the sequence. Stabilize, match, automate, capture, simplify. It asks you to do a few boring things once, then mostly get out of your own way. Let me take you back to that Friday. The money lands, the balance is briefly enormous, and the 4-hour window of feeling rich opens up before the month starts claiming its pieces. Nothing I told you tonight changes the headline. It'll keep doing its thing, setting records on the backs of a handful of giants, lifted by more than $1 trillion a year of buying that was never really about you. That number isn't your enemy, and it isn't your friend. It's just weather in a country, running its own rules, mostly indifferent to whether you ever show up. But that share of yours, the part of every paycheck that becomes something you own before the month absorbs it, that one you can change. Not tonight, not with a lucky call or a perfect moment. You change it the way inertia changes everything. Slowly, automatically, and then all at once. You get the share off of zero with one boring automatic contribution. You catch your raises before they evaporate. You clear the clutter so you can actually see what you're building. And then you let time do the part that looks like magic and is really just arithmetic being extremely patient. Here's the honest version, with no number promised, because anyone promising you a specific number is selling you something. I don't know what the market does next year, and neither does anyone with a thumbnail full of arrows. This is about turning a steady share of your income into a claim that keeps growing. So when the good news arrives, there's somewhere in your life for it to land. The gap between the glowing headline and your quiet paycheck was never a verdict on you. It was just a gap. And a gap, it turns out, is the one kind of distance you can close a couple $100s at a time, starting on any ordinary payday, in that same 4-hour window where you briefly felt rich. Except this time, a small sliver of it slips out of the month's reach and quietly becomes